but predominantly since you're in a winning position, you have taken all their towers. An offensive ward on this side isn't too bad. So a really good ward is right here. Now, again, for offensive ward, depending on enemy hero, well said. If you have a Avenger on your team, if you have a lot of sight spell like a Venomancer, it's really good to ward it very, very offensively. So now, when I like to look at the mini map to see who's winning. When the towers are gone here, for the Scourge side, you could really ward very offensively. So your ward should really look like a line on their side. And speaking of such line, the first ward we're gonna put is right here, on the Sentinel side. And once you're new, place it, you can see that a lot of vision that it grants. You see this vision, of course there's a tower here. It won't be in the tower range, but it will see a lot of stuff. I would personally put it a little bit south, maybe around here, but it's a good ward nonetheless. It'll give you a lot of vision. You can make ganks a lot more possible, a lot easier. And continue to extend this line. We're gonna have a ward on the middle here. I ward up this camp. Oh, not that part. Maybe here as well. Well, this a little bit, yeah. Just outside of tower range, a ward on this plateau would be extremely good. And then, of course, a ward here. That's more of a late game ward, but. And finally, a ward behind the first tower. Speaking of the ward behind the first tower, it's a very good idea to put it behind your tower as you're taking this tower. It just grants you a vision, and this game through the mid game is a definitely good ward. If you look at the mini map, look at how like everything lines up. It's a line. It's really a line dividing it. Of course, in the early game, the dividing line is a river, but now that you're winning, you push the line up. Just think that it's like a tug of war. Anytime that you push the line up towards the enemy base, you're winning. And by like showing your dominance, you're using these wards to like push up. And you know, as the second and third line of tower are taken, you really push up this line. So we warded a lot, so let's look at what these wards do. This ward on the bottom lane gives you a lot of sight and gank on this tower. This ward in mid lane gives you a lot of backstab moment on the mid tower. So I mean, all these wards grant you a lot of sight, and these are not like, you know, okay, you have to ward here kind of thing. It's a really good general idea to ward offensively and push your wards to the enemy tower, to enemy side. One important thing is that you have to keep this ward up at all times. And as the game keep progressing and you even take the second line of towers, then you even push up these lines even more offensively. So if you push the second tower down, it starts to become very important to ward this spot. Very important to ward right in front of their base. And also, I've seen Chinese player do this a lot, which I'm not a big fan of. It's dropping a ward here when you're pushing up the second tower. It doesn't grant you that too much vision, but I advise you, it's not bad to kind of play around. And a ward maybe on top. You can see how on the second line you're pushing the line even up further. You're getting more territory advantage. Now base kind of lane warding is very important. If the enemy team is actually trying to farm, you could just gank them very, very offensively. Now of course we're kind of just showing you all the spots that are warding, and we have basically unlimited amount of wards to go through. But if you're only getting 2 every 6 minutes, you gotta really keep in mind, you gotta ward efficiently. You can't just dump it down like, okay, I want here, I want here, I want here. Like, you can't dump it down. So if there's a priority list, I have to say late game, these are probably the best ward if you want to just sing out too. But you got to keep in mind these two are mostly a lot counter ward very, very frequently. So of course this one gives you a huge area where you can gank very, very efficiently, and this ward is very important if you're Roshaning. Generally when you're Roshaning, these two wards are the best wards. On the Sentinel side, if you got these two wards warded, there's absolutely almost like 0 chance you're gonna get gank surprise. So if you're Roshaning, these two wards should be warded down. If you're not, these wards are probably your best bet in terms of like just extend the line. So these are more of the mid game, very very offensive wards, and we're gonna talk about the mid game very defensive ward in terms of Sentinel side. All right, now this clip we're gonna ward very defensively as a Sentinel team if your towers are being taken down and if they're doing that little line push that I was talking about. Keep in mind that I'm talking about these line pushes. Keep in mind that a tower is kind of one part of your big line. So let's say, for example, your top tower is still there, then you only have to extend your line, you know, continuously down here, whereas you have your tower acting as a line. But for the sake of you know, discussion, we're gonna have all of our exterior tower taken, and we're gonna say, okay, we're gonna ward first as if we're first line of towers taken down. So as your first line of towers taken down, you probably want to have wards protecting the entrance into your jungle. So wards up here is very good. Wards up here is very good. Wards down here is very good. You can notice that we're actually building the line. This ward is particularly very good because it gives you very a lot of sight into many ganking routes into your jungle. And this ward between the two lilies, which we're just calling it the two lilies, it's a very very good defensive ward, very very good offensive ward, depending how defensive you want to be. Defensively, for the Sentinel side, you can see this ward sees a huge amount of vision in the many path that it could be ganking. You know, if you have a carry at bot lane just rising away, this ward's very very good defensively. If you don't want to be too defensive, you could put one maybe on this little torch spot I talked about earlier, a little bit further out, but it's not that really that important here. Yeah, this spot here, as your noob is just placing. You can see that with these wards, you have a very good general knowledge of if enemy team is coming to gank and whatnot. And maybe a single ward up here could help as well. Again, we don't have unlimited resources, so you gotta keep in mind in game, you gotta ward efficiently. You can't just be chucking down wards like nothing. They do cost money. They do have gold. You can see that we're building a very good line here. You know, despite your first towers are being taken away, you have a very very good defensive line. Now on Sentinel, to extend the defensive line up to the north side of the map, it's a very good idea to have a ward up here. This ward actually lets you see across the river. So if you see you know, 3 or 4 heroes are gathering, you know they're mounting up a mid push. So it's a very very good idea to ward that spot as well. This ward up the ancient camp is fairly important in terms of mid game. They will be coming into gank very offensively down here, and also it gives you some nice vision. If the enemy team decides to go for your ancient camp, you could go get off a very very nice gank in there as well. And finally, on the top lane, you do have a lot of trees to work with, but a very very good ward is placed here as well. This spot allows you to give you some vision in terms of enemy ganking from this path and enemy ganking from this path as well, to protect a top solo carry in terms of rising away. So again, just take a moment to look at the mini map. Very very nice line, a little bit crooked, but a very defensive arc, right? A very defensive arc in terms of I'm protecting my carries. Here's exactly what I need to ward. Again, we're working with very limited resources here, but you got to keep in mind we're warding as if all of our towers are taken down. So which is not, you know, not nearly the case, not most likely the case here. So this is again as if your first line of tower is taken down. So imagine if our second line of tower is taken down, how are we going to ward here? So again, it becomes very increasingly important to ward this spot, and then outside of your hills, and this hill over here. Notice how your noob is taking this path to walk here. In warding this spot, there's 3 paths to walk to ward. You could ward from here, and of course you could ward from this path over here. So 3 warding spot, good for every team, both Sentinel and Scourge. And you could definitely take a ward up here if this spot is heavily fought over, which is a lot very often. You could just definitely ward over here as well. Not the best ward. Probably Scourge will use this ward more often, but it's not a bad ward if this spot is countered very often, quite frequently. This ward up on this hill is very very good in terms of giving a lot of sight, and then just wards on in front of the tower. And as you can see, earlier we basically warded pretty much the same thing. Pretty much the same thing. If you want to flip the map, around to the Scourge side, when you're on the offensive side and when you're on the defensive side, the warding aspect is just pretty much the same. Notice how this ward is very, very good. You don't have to put in lane. This ward actually grants you vision into this area as well. So again, looking at the minimap, very, very solid line, very, very nice line. Again, if you have a tower up here, you don't need a ward there. But again, we're building a very, very solid line to protect. Of course, you're being pushed back, and it's very important to keep your carries safely and alive, and so give them room to farm. So depending, let's say you're losing, right, but you win a team fight, then it's okay to start to push out with your warding, push that line out into the enemy territory. This whole game, the warding game, is all about fighting for territory. So you can see, again, very nice lines, and we are going through them very quickly. Because, how often are you going to use this one ward? How often are you going to use this one ward? And how often are you going to use, the 2 lilies? But you got to keep in mind, these good wards, this mid-game wards, it just comes in terms of, like, having a lot of experience. A lot of times when we're playing in-house, I have players asking me, hey, Luminous, I got 2 wards, where should I ward it? And I just tell them, dude, just look at the minimap. And this is exactly what I mean. Look at the minimap, look at where the towers are, look at where the creep equilibrium is at. And the answer should be very, very apparent. And again, these arc-like theory is where I ward upon, and from personal experience, it has worked out fairly well. So this is pretty much the offensive and defensive ward from the Sentinel side. And the next clip, we're going to talk about the offensive and defensive ward on the Scourge side. Okay, so this clip, we're going to talk about the offensive warding as the Scourge side. And again, we're going to follow the same theory that I've been stressing out. The theory of warding as a line. So imagine the first set of towers taken on the enemy team. So you have quite a bit of territorial advantage. So where should you ward? It's a very, very good idea to ward their forest, and it's also very, very good idea to ward their lanes. So we're going to have a combination of both, and in both we're going to be building that big line we're talking about. So it's a very good idea to ward their lanes. These kind of laning wards will have give you a great side advantage of seeing, damn, I see their enemy farming, I need a gank. But you gotta keep in mind, especially when you're warding like this, I didn't talk about that too much in the Sentinels aspect. Try not to let them see you warding. So, if you're pushing a tower, if you're pushing this tower, it's a good idea to drop it. Or if you're pushing a creep wave, it's a good idea to drop it. It's generally a very good idea if the enemy does not see you throw down these wards, because they will be countered fairly easily. Second, what I want to talk about is this between 2 lilies here. Again, look at how your noob is placing them. Going behind the trees, placing it, and in a regular game, he will just run back. But, we're warding the next spot. But this warding position, again, in the last video, I said 2 lilies, very offensive ward and very defensive ward. Here's the offensive aspect of it. Great vision in terms of seeing the entire Sentinel forest and allows to ganking the Sentinel. Very, very good. And also, forgot that there's this very offensive ward on the mid game when you're pushing up the bottom tower as well. Your noob, can you place a ward here? Very good ward in kind of in a substitute compared to this one. If you're pushing a ward here, and if you're pushing the second tower, very good ward in terms of pushing. You see a lot of vision behind the tower, so very good ward there as well. And finally, we will be pushing a ward here again. Very uphill, nice vision. Seeing a lot of vision in a lot of area nearby. Very good. Again, hiding yourself in the trees when placing it, very, very important. And we're going to move up to the mid lane. Again, up the ancient camp, very, very good. And also, I've seen a Chinese player do this. Kind of behind this little tree area, we'll see great deal of a mid lane vision. Very, very nice. Also, this ward will extend your mid game vision. Seeing the mid game into lane. Sometimes, a lot of times, if you're pushing the mid tower, and a lot of Sentinel heroes like to hide up in this area in terms of backstabbing. So it won't be a bad idea to put a ward up here when you're pushing the second tower. Of course, great idea to have a lane ward in the lane as well. Going back to have our in lane wards. So again, we're building that arc, very offensive arc, pushing it kind of oppressively down the Sentinel's team's throat.